My view of motorcycling, I think, sometimes becomes a little bit polarised. I often refer to them as toys, just a way of deriving pleasure from our spare time. But as a few viewers from Asia have recently reminded me, for them, a motorcycle is a legitimate and necessary mode of transport. It's basically the only way of getting around independently, especially for the younger generation, pretty much like it was for us back in the 1960s. I shouldn't have forgotten that really, because my early days as a motorcyclist, as a young man, my bikes were the only way of getting around. Even during my college days, I seem to remember it would cost me £14 a week to get to college because I lived out in the sticks, if I used public transport. Whereas travel cost me half of that with a second-hand motorcycle and third-party fire and theft insurance. And then when I started working, a motorcycle was my only way to get to work. Especially when I was working shifts, because on some shifts, the time that I left or the time that I had to go to work, there were no buses. So my apologies to those people for that oversight. Now, the biggest problem with travelling by motorcycle, as any motorcyclist knows, is your ability to carry luggage. For the most part, you don't need to carry much, so that's fine. A simple backpack or a bag over the shoulder will be enough. But if you want to do anything a little more serious, panniers are generally the way to go. And soft panniers, soft luggage, have always been my weapon of choice. But the biggest problem with motorcycles is they're all different. And the biggest problems with motorcycle luggage manufacturers are they all go their own way. They want you to buy their bags, but they also want you to buy their luggage mounting system. So they all do everything very differently. So luggage can be very expensive for a motorcyclist, because what worked for your last bike isn't necessarily, in fact, it's almost a dead certainty it's not going to work for your new bike. And to that end, over the years, I've acquired quite a collection of motorcycle panniers. Now, generally speaking, what I tend to gravitate towards is a throwover or universal type soft pannier, like the stuff made by Trip Machine, Lomo Watersports or Burley brand. Especially where modern classic motorcycles are concerned, because the general way that the manufacturers seem to go is the coat hanger style pannier rail. Generally speaking, the manufacturer of the motorcycle will bring these out, but quite often third-party manufacturers bring them out as well. And although their main function is to keep your luggage from getting entangled in your rear suspension and your back wheel, you can usually find a relatively cost-effective way of mounting existing luggage in a way that will keep you and your luggage safe and withstand the rigours of long distance travel. The coat hanger style pannier supports are the nearest thing to a universal pannier mounting system. So as I expressed a few months ago, I was particularly excited when Royal Enfield announced that they were releasing a set of pannier supports along these lines. Now, I should point out from the outset that, like a lot of OEM pannier supports, these are designed to be used with Royal Enfield's own soft luggage for the Interceptor. But A, I don't want to buy any more soft luggage, and B, I don't particularly like the wedge-shaped look of them. Don't get me wrong, they're better than nothing at all, but wedge-shaped luggage is very inefficient for stashing your gear. Now, the reason Royal Enfield have gone down this route with these panniers is because they made a rod for their own backs with these upswept silencers. They're a bit of a Marmite feature of this bike. Some people love it, some people hate it. I sit somewhere in the middle because At least it does allow easy access for chain maintenance. But it also gets woefully in the way of any type of soft luggage, which severely limits the Interceptor's touring capabilities, in my opinion. Now, Royal Enfield have sort of found a partial solution for this problem, but in my opinion, it's not a very elegant solution, and that will become apparent nearer the end of the video. First of all, let's take a look at the rails. Now, these rails are very high quality. As far as I can tell, they're made completely from polished stainless steel. They do feel quite heavy in the hand compared to those made by other manufacturers. And along with this strong wire support between the two forks, this means it's going to be a very strong support rail, and there's a reason for that. These rails are intended to take the full weight of your luggage. They're not there simply to stop your luggage from getting tangled up in your suspension or your rear wheel, although obviously they do perform that function as well. The build quality is pretty good. It's not perfect. The welding is, I would say, about up to the same standard as Triumph's offerings, but these pannier rails do cost approximately half the price of those that Triumph turn out. Now, it's worth noting that there is an additional threaded hole in the top rail of these panniers close to the mounting point, and this is actually a feature designed for securing Royal Enfield's own panniers. Right, so that's that out of the way. Let's take a look at mounting these rails and see what they actually look like when they're on the bike. These rails actually use exactly the same mounting points as any other coat hanger style rail that I've seen. That is the top shock mounting bracket and the bracket used for securing the pillion foot peg. Just two securing positions, so it's very quick and very straightforward to fit these. So the first thing to do is remove the top shock bolt. Now, this also secures the lift handle for the centre stand, and unfortunately this can't be retained with these pannier mounts fitted. So you need to remove that grab handle and put it somewhere safe for future use. You should then return the bolt that held it in place back to its original position and tighten it up because it holds part of the grab rail on. And when you've done that, you can turn your attention to the passenger footrest mount. Fold your footrest down, and then using a ring spanner, preferably a ratcheting ring spanner, which will make it a lot easier, unfasten the nut that holds the footrest in place. And once you've removed that nut, you can withdraw the foot peg. You're then ready to start fitting your pannier rail. Now, the rail kit does come with two replacement top shock mount bolts with Loctite pre-applied. Now, I'm not sure whether these are replacements because they need to be slightly longer than the originals, because obviously I don't have the originals anymore. But either way, they come with the kit, so I would use them. Offer it up, and then when you're sure exactly how it goes, fasten it up with one of those replacement bolts. Fasten it all the way in, but don't tighten it up yet. You need a little bit of movement so that you can adjust it to line those bottom holes up. Now, as you can see, there are two slotted holes in the bottom bracket of each of these rails. The larger of the two slots is designed to take the actual foot peg mounting bolt. The other one is for the locating pin to ensure that the foot peg is in the right position, and also to stop the foot peg from spinning while you're trying to tighten the bolt up. Carefully line them up and then insert your foot peg bolt, making sure that you locate the locating pin into the smaller of the two slots. Then put your nut back on the bolt at the back and tighten it up. Now, monitor the situation as you're doing this to make sure that everything remains lined up and that locating pin is where it needs to be. You can then go ahead and tighten this nut up completely. And when you've done that, you can go ahead and tighten up that top shock mounting bolt. Now, Royal Enfield do supply the torque settings for these. I'm not going to give them to you because I get far too many complaints from people saying that they've tightened up them up to the specifications that I've given and they've stripped a thread or snapped a bolt. At the end of the day, I think this is either down to people not following instructions correctly, or it's down to the fact that their torque wrench is out of calibration. But I get a bit fed up of dealing with these complaints, so take a look in your factory manual or take a look at the instructions that come with your rails. Now, I'm not going to repeat fitting instructions for the other side because they are, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same. Just be careful to replace any washers back where you got them from, and that will be the job done. Now, are you ready for this? Now, insofar as Royal Enfield do a lot of things right, their instructions are about the worst in the industry. They've basically managed to compact about 4 pages of text and diagrams onto 1 page, and even with my reading glasses, I couldn't properly read them. So I just assumed I'd done something horribly wrong, because these pannier rails, I'm sorry, but without panniers fitted hiding them, they look awful. They sit far too high and the angle is far too acute. It looks like an abandoned project to build a bat cycle. I also discovered whilst trying again to decipher the instructions that it may be possible to refit the grab handle. I tried this and I couldn't get my hand in to operate it, but it may just be the fact that I've misinterpreted what are rather difficult to read and confusing instructions. I've said it in the past and I'll say it again, instructions are somewhere that Royal Enfield really needs to improve on. Now, in my opinion, not only do these supports fit too high, they also fit too far away from the bike. And I understand why Royal Enfield have had to do this. It's all down to those high level upswept exhausts. They've turned the whole question of fitting luggage into a bit of a dog's dinner. I tried and failed to fit any of the Trip Machine panniers that I have. They are designed to fit onto the seat rail and then be supported by a pannier rail. There was just too much of a gap between the seat rail and the pannier rail for that to really work without much longer straps. And even then, I think it would require a redesign of the bag to make it work. Now, the Burley brand panniers were a different story. They were much more of a success. And with just a little bit of adjustment, I managed to get them to fit satisfactorily and fasten down in a secure way. But unfortunately, they do have to sit at that silly angle. I'm just struggling a bit to fathom why these rails had to sit so far away from the bike. They could have brought them in much closer, which would have provided, you know, a lot more scope for aftermarket panniers from manufacturers other than Royal Enfield. The good news is the medium-sized Lomo Adventure dry bags fitted like a glove. They were very easy to fit and they were very secure once fitted. I think it's even possible that you may be able to fit the large size, but I didn't have time to try that out because I was losing daylight. All in all, these pannier rails are far from perfect. I think there's a lot of things that Royal Enfield could have done to make these a bit more useful for your average riders, but they are what they are, and they do offer more of an option than you have without them. Now, it might be that you quite like the Royal Enfield panniers. If that's the case, then the job's a good one, really. Go ahead, buy the complete set and you're sorted. But either way, I will leave a link to these rails through Hitchcock's Motorcycles and Royal Enfield GB. It's up to you which one you get them from. If you want to get some, they're both the same price. Once again, thank you so much for watching this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell and ensure that your notifications are enabled on your account. Otherwise, you won't get any notifications. I am, of course, going to be back on Friday, so until then, if you're able to ride, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.